And of course, we are in a very odd time as a community that is focused around these live in-person events. And so today I'd actually like to have sort of a two-part event. The first part will be me throwing some slides at you, and I'm going to review the process that Meetup is suggesting for those groups that want to explore virtual events. And then the second half of this is your chance to get to know Susan Tenby, who's coming in as the new Global Director of Community, which is a new role within TechSoup, which I'm very excited about because it gets to bring all of our disparate pieces together. So NetSquared will stop being one thing way out here, but rather will get to be integrated in with the larger community that we're going to build out globally. Exactly, Pauline, I'm on board with this. This is so needed. And so that's going to be this. So basically, you're going to have to work hard on the second half of this. So start brainstorming some questions, and I'll have some prompts to guide us as we go through this. So let me get into the share screeny part. And I guess, one last thing I should say. As you came in, you were muted by default. You can, of course, unmute yourself. And I encourage you to do that if you have any questions along the way. Be cautious about that because there's a number of us here. So at the end of your question, if you can remute yourself just so we keep the sound quality good, that's great. And also, the chat window will be open along the way. So if you have any other questions, just want to queue things up in there, feel free to throw things in there, and we'll often get to answer some questions. And yeah, I think that's a great place to start, as Pauline has just done. If you want to just do a quick intro about, who you are, what city you're representing, that would be a great way for us to start firing up that chat room. This is what I love about this. It's like when you're actually in a room with a dozen community managers, you can forget everything and they're going to take care of you. So let me fire up the screen share. And voila, did that work for you? Perfect. So the big question is, what do we do about Meetup? And right now, both from TechSoup's standpoint and also from Meetup Central, they are recommending that all events be canceled or go virtual for, at a minimum, the next month. And for those of you who have events scheduled right now, you probably got an email from me yesterday saying, hey, like, what's up with this next event? Are you canceling it? Just because I want to make sure that we don't leave any unresolved questions with the attendees who may have already RSVP'd. So, but that's the short answer. At this point, all virtual or all canceled for at least the next month, and I suspect we could easily extend into 2 months, but I'll keep in touch with you on that. If you need to cancel your event, it's actually a pretty simple process. You just go as the logged in administrator onto Meetup and click the manage button, and then from there, go to cancel event. And so that would be the process you need to follow for any of your upcoming events. I would recommend that you give your attendees at least a minimum of 1 week's notice. So avoid doing any kind of last minute cancellation or changes. Try and give them at least 1 week's notice. The other option is totally new. Meetup has been fighting online events forever and ever, but has basically been forced to relent because of the current situation. And so there is a 3-step process that they're now recommending for people who want to take their events virtual. The first thing is start your title with the words online. That's going to make it both clear to me that you've thought about what form that event's going to be in. It's also going to make it much more clearer to your attendees. The other thing you'll want to do, and this is the fancy new feature, is in the location section, there's actually this thing right here, which is how you have a checkbox saying, make this an online event. So when you click that, you're now going to get a new field where you actually get to put in a webinar link. And so this is going to make it really clear and obvious to your attendees that this is not an in-person event, but a virtual event. And actually, as for what that webinar link is, you can either provide it yourself if you've got your own tool, or we can provide the shared Zoom room, and I'll show you how to use that booking calendar in a moment. So if you want to take your event virtual, what we've provided is this Zoom room, which means it's basically kind of like this. Up to 300 attendees can come into it. And it's just one simple permanent link that you can use. And once you fill out this booking calendar, you'll automatically get both your event on this calendar, as well as you'll get the link to that Zoom room, which you'll use there on the Meetup. And I'll show you what that looks like right now. So you basically go to this Zendesk page around Zoom virtual events. And then I give you a bit of instructions and best practices. And you'll see right here, there's a nice fancy calendar. If you go into the link right here, the booking form, all you need to do is click into that. And it's the same Calendly system you use to book a meeting with me. So all you do basically is go in, select the time, then the date, and say, I want to do that. And then you just put in your name, your email, your event title, and the link to your Meetup. And click that schedule event, and then it's automatically going to show up on this calendar. So it's a nice, smooth process. I'm not going to slow you down if you're doing it in the middle of the night. And the follow-up email that you get from that will give you the link for Zoom that you can actually use for public distribution. So that's what that part looks like. And then, of course, once you've actually updated things, then you got to tell everyone everywhere about your changes. So if you've got an existing event, when you change the location, Meetup's going to automatically prompt you. So if you take a live event to virtual because the location was changed, when you click save, Meetup's going to be, hey, you should tell everyone about this. And you say like, yes, please, and click the OK button. I would also recommend that about 15 minutes before that webinar start, that you go into Meetup and message everyone who's RSVP'd. Just say like, oh, by the way, final reminder, here's the exact link, because people are not always great about adding things to their calendars, of course. And there's also, of course, a comment section in every event in Meetup. And I'd also suggest you put the event link there as well. So put the webinar link there. Basically, everywhere you can, let people know. And so I think this is one of the big questions for people, which is to say, should I take my event online or should I just cancel it? And I think it depends a lot upon both your community and also the kind of event. So as an example, here in Vancouver, I'm taking my next event and taking it virtual because it was going to be almost a webinar anyways, a 45-minute presentation on email marketing best practices. But I've canceled my following event because it was a 3-hour hands-on workshop, and that was just too difficult for us to turn into an online event. And so we just decided it was more appropriate to cancel that particular event. Generally, my advice would be, if this is your first or second event, or you have a brand new group, I'm not positive if this virtual event will work well, simply because you don't have a large list at the moment to promote it to. Nor do you have the existing interconnections between your community that will help drive people to that virtual event. So you may just find it's quite poorly attended. But if you've got a very large or a very engaged group where they already have these existing relationships and want to get together and share on a regular basis, then I think going online is quite appropriate. Again, it's totally up to you to determine the right approach for your local communities. But if in doubt, give me a shout, or this can act as a bit of guidance. And then this is sort of your Zoom frequently asked questions. The top one people have been asking is how many people, and the answer is 300 maximum. We have come nowhere close to ever maxing that out, but if you feel you're worried about that, again, send me a message and we'll see if there's a good solution for you. The other thing you should know about this Zoom room is it's not an event where, like a link where people will RSVP. Rather, basically, you just give out the link and anyone can drop in and out. It's kind of like having an open room, which is why we have the calendar system for people to book it. It also means that anyone can share the screen, although everyone does start muted and then will have to manually unmute themselves, which means if you think you're going to have more than 50 attendees, let me know and I might set up a alternate, more RSVPable event for you But I suspect that most groups, unless you get 50 attendees out on an average month at your event, you're not going to get 50 live attendees. So I think you'll be okay. And then the other advantage to using this Zoom room is the video will be automatically recorded. And as we've got shareable video, I'll be taking that out onto the NetSquared blog. And then the last thing I should tell you about is what else we're planning to do at this time. So the first thing is we're monitoring the situation, and we'll continue to offer best practices. Knowing, of course, that everyone lives in a different context. And so, the local requirements from your local health board are, of course, always going to supersede anything I say. TechSoup is also going to produce all kinds of great content and webinars about working remotely, virtual management of nonprofits. And I'll share that content out to you so you can in turn share that out to your communities. I'm also going to be reaching out to the whole Meetup membership every 2 weeks with just a very quick email with some links to some of the top virtual events coming from the community. So it's a way for us to keep even those groups that have canceled a way to sort of re-engage with the wider NetSquared community. And I would say if you are not already on the organizer Slack or Facebook, this is your time to join because it's where you're going to get more frequent updates. Neither are super high traffic, but I think it'll be very helpful for you to learn from how other group leaders are managing things right now. And now double slide. So I would love to hear a little bit from what you're doing within your local group. And I'm also going to fire into the chat window and see if I've missed anything. So Stephanie, what's happening in Berlin? Like, what's the group doing right now? I'll unmute you. Oh, go for it.
Okay. Honestly, I have no idea. I was kind of hoping Johannes would be here and would tell me, I could hear from him what was going on. He's taken the lead on this. So I honestly have no idea what we're doing. I don't think we have anything else scheduled. We had our last meeting just before everything shut down, and I really have no idea what we're doing in Berlin. So, but this is good because now I can go back to Johannes and go, oh, we could do this online now, and see what he thinks about it. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, some approaches to explore with. And I imagine, of course, as an established organization, they've got some infrastructure there.
Yeah, there's definitely a core group that comes out each month. So I don't know that the Meetup piece of it, the piece of it that's on Meetup hasn't been particularly active, but they have another, an offline group that is quite active and quite involved. And like I said, there's a core there. So it might be good for them to shift things online. It'll be a learning for them for sure, to move it online. But we're learning lots these days, so it's okay.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple questions in here. One is coming in from Regina, a question about shared screens and that there's been some challenges there. Do you want to just sort of talk through quickly what your concern is there? And I'm going to unmute you. Oh, you're unmuted. Go for it.
Hi, yeah, it's just basically, I probably will do some virtual events, but the one thing I'm concerned about is just the automatic default to a shared screen. Like if I schedule something with via the Zoom platform, can I just email you or Skype you and ask you to turn that off? Just because there was a Zoom call, just a whole bunch of people got in, and then literally somebody started spamming the group with not safe, just basically really awful X-rated stuff. And I would just want that turned off, no option for, screen sharing for whoever pops in from,
right.
Because I can't, I'm assuming I won't be able to control it. So I would just want it to be you know, maybe whoever is doing the speaking, I'll just be like, hey, send me the slides, and then just say next slide or whatever. But that way, there's no risk that that could happen.
Totally.
I don't think it would happen with the SF Tech for Good community, but
Yeah, but as a
they didn't
larger community, I
happen on
think
this call either.
you're in a different place. So here's the quick answer, which is this was a bit of a hack to set up this Zoom room that anyone could open up and start without me having to be up at night, or just because we're so global. So that's the default. If I'm around, and if you just like ping me and say like, can you be around at the start of that meetup, then I can go in, make you the administrator of that group, and then you have all those admin controls. It just means that I need to have been there live at the start of your event to give you that power, because I can't do it ahead of time. So that's the only thing. But yeah, so I think we do have a solution. It's just there'll be a little bit of a manual step to it.
Well, we're in the same time zone, so I think we can work it out. But yeah,
Absolutely.
That's going around that is kind of scary. All right, thanks, Eli.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, was there other questions I missed in the chat window? Actually, I think one really interesting resource that was surfaced by Susan is it sounds like there's actually a TechSoup course track. Susan, do you want to talk people through what's available?
Yeah, I just found out this morning that all TechSoup courses are available to anyone. You don't have to be approved as a nonprofit. So you guys have access to all our courses, and some are free. And it was specifically to Stephanie's question about guiding virtual management, virtual work with nonprofits. We just released one relating to, obviously, the current pandemic, and it's free for anyone. And I put the link right here. So it includes a lot of tips about virtual meetings and using virtual tools to manage and work with organizations remotely.
Fabulous. And this is, of course, another great reminder that you as organizers actually have free access to any of the courses within the TechSoup Courses platform, including those which are normally paid. To get that access, all you need to basically do is send me the link to that course and say, hey, I want this, and I'm going to forward you to the right people, and within 24 hours, you should have that access. Perfect. Anyone else have a quick story to talk about how they're reacting to either going virtual or making that choice around cancellation? How about Jean? I know that you've got a bit of a veteran group that's been going on longer than NetSquared has existed. What are you doing in North Carolina? I'm going to unmute you. Go for it.
We're in a bit of a transition, as I had mentioned to you. So we have, from the people who used to be involved to people who are newly involved, and we canceled our last meeting, and I'm in here to learn some ways we can pull in. We like being a face-to-face group, so I don't want to switch to being online and lose kind of that local feel to it. But I want to get people together now. So I'm going to try something based on whatever I learn here today.
Yeah, I think so far what I've heard from the initial groups coming in, oh, good, we got your camera, good to see you, Jean, is that some groups have found like quite a small number of attendees, maybe just one or two, simply because we haven't trained our members to think of us as a place you go for virtual events. We have really been dedicated to creating these live in-person experiences. But I think for those groups where people have been coming together for years, it does give us just a way to keep those relationships going during this time. And the other part is, although people can't always attend in like real time, because we're recording this, you'll have a video to share afterwards with all of your members, which is another way just to serve our local communities.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it, Pauline. Oh, sorry, not hearing you yet.
Is that better?
Got it.
Is it better? Okay, great. Pauline Roach from Birmingham in the UK. Still looking for a venue for our face-to-face meetings, but obviously now we can meet like this. And I'm thinking of just doing an open house and just calling everybody in, because not everybody comes to every meeting anyway, but just to get people to check in and say how they're feeling, because this thing is really hitting people emotionally. And you know, it'd be good to just let people check in and say, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing. And they don't even have to say what they're doing, because how we're feeling is more important than what we're doing. We've all built relationships already. We all have relationships, and we can talk about a bit about that. With my other hats on, you know, I'm meeting funders, I'm meeting service designers, I'm meeting loads of people with tech skills who want to help nonprofits now. And my big concern is they don't have the soft skills to be able to help nonprofits, you know, because you know what it's like. When you start working with a nonprofit, it takes a long time. They don't immediately trust you. You got to build a relationship. For me, it's time and trust, and then tech. Not tech first. And a lot of these are tech first people. So I'm trying to do some sensitive, you know, saying to people, a lot of small charities don't have the tech that you're familiar with, and so building relationship with a couple of small charities in your area is probably better than trying to build some new shiny thing. They're all about building some new shiny thing, and trying to put them off that is a challenge as well. But I'm fighting the good fight. I've been on like 100, you know, Zoom calls with like 100 people, so 4 screens, and you know, yeah, they're all keen, but they're not aware of the intricacies of working with small charities. Over.
Yeah. Yes, small charities are especially complicated. And I think the other really important point you brought up is NetSquared is, as much as we are about the technology lens on the nonprofit sector, in so many cities, we're really the major local convening of the sector, which means sometimes the conversations aren't going to have a technology lens. And I think that's totally fine, because this is a place and a moment, as you were saying, Pauline, where we all do need to come together, just support each other and listen to each other. So speaking of that listening part, I'd love to move into the second phase of this call, and introduce you to Susan Tenby. She's been with TechSoup for a long time, and she's actually been doing community for over 20 years, which means she's got like deep depth and knowledge. She was actually there at the very beginning of the TechSoup website, and it was there, you know, as we created our social platforms, as the forums were created, and so for her, this is real return to form, to come back into this community where she actually was the founder in many ways. The other thing I'm really excited about is this is the first time in certainly the 8 years I've been around TechSoup where we're going to bring together all of our disparate community things, which have all been sort of operating in different teams, working not together, but rather just like in their own silos. So we're going to bust those silos down, and we're going to bring together both the online forums, the social media, our conferences and events, as well as, of course, NetSquared, which is sort of our grassroots events program. And so you're going to be hearing lots more of that over the next couple months as we look for ways for us to bring both you into that larger TechSoup community, but in turn to bring our local members to you as well, to make sure that they know about the local value you're producing. So Susan, I wanted to do a quick hello.
Hi, thanks so much. It's really great to see some of the familiar faces that I know from just being around the nonprofit tech sector. I didn't really prepare kind of a speech. I just wrote some notes while Eli was talking, but things that I think are, so my new role, I've been, just a little bit of history about me is that I was hired to launch TechSoup back in the year 2000. So I've actually been at TechSoup for 20 years. I was on the initial launch team, wrote the first 30 articles, wrote the first newsletter, and then kind of quickly moved to community and started launched the TechSoup forums. And so I've been doing this nonprofit tech for good community thing for a really long time. And I'm very passionate about it. I took kind of a 7-year gap and went to Caravan Studios, which some of you might know is the division of TechSoup that focuses on apps for good and innovation. And it's kind of a design lab. Like if you think about IDEO, I went there for 7 years and I'm happy to be back at TechSoup. My new role is focusing on my new role focuses mostly on overseeing the TechSoup forums, social media, strategy for global community and NetSquared, and kind of revisioning NetSquared to be part of the larger organization. Eli is super competent, and just in the couple weeks that I've been in this role, I have been really impressed with his skills as a community manager. He's one of the best I've seen. He's extremely organized, so you guys have been in great hands. So it's not that it needed fixing, it's just that we would like to integrate it more with the rest of the organization. He hasn't really had a manager who kind of felt passionate about community in the past, because he's been managed by like 5,000 different people. So no one got to stay long enough to kind of really sink, and nobody with a scope that is as big as the scope I'm going to be running and overseeing. So I just want the rest of the organization to really kind of see what he's doing, to have visibility into this great community, and similarly to allow you guys to have more visibility and access into what TechSoup is doing. So with that, it becomes a messaging thing. So we're gonna be talking about kind of renewing the brand, and also giving you guys some consistency in format. So while you're still going to be obviously autonomous and allowing you to have your communities, you're also going to be given things like bulleted paragraphs, ways to speak about TechSoup to your groups, things like the link I just put in the chat so that you can share it out with your networks and put it in your newsletters. I'm noticing a lot of people, and well, several people in the group have their own separate communities and bring them onto the separate platforms. We're going to try to be more unified and less separate, to give you kind of more of a brand within the TechSoup framework, and also to you know, kind of in the spirit of interconnectedness, to allow your members to take advantage of the offerings that we have. So for example, what I was just talking about, the TechSoup courses. And finally, I guess what I want to say is that we, having this new role that I designed, so this wasn't a role, I kind of saw a need and tapped Rebecca, our CEO, and said that, you know, I really do see that there should be a way to bring all of our elements of community together for the organization and the partner network. So like the larger enterprise, so that we can all kind of benefit from each other's knowledge. So in that, I'm hoping that I'll be able to amplify your voices and connect you with our regional partners more, and also with the larger organization, with our constituents, so that you aren't just speaking to your members, but also having a voice and allowing us to amplify your voice to the larger TechSoup community. So that's a lot of talking I just did. I hope to bring more things like the free TechSoup courses to you and other ways, and I hope to boost your signal through the TechSoup community and bring you into the forums and other things that we can do. So I'm gonna take a breath and let you ask me questions, if you have any.
Yeah, and if you're feeling shy or struggling with the unmute, of course you can throw something into the chat window as well, and I'd be happy to bring that forward. I also just want to call out that Lizzie's showing up into this, which is fabulous, because basically she is our entry point into so much of the local TechSoup partners, which is obviously the TechSoup in your own country. And that's another relationship I think we're all going to be working on strengthening over the coming year.
Hey everybody, I'm Lizzie. Nice to see you. I'm here to learn and listen to you guys today. Thanks.
So because we're often shy, I have, of course, prepared a couple question prompts just to get you going as you ask some questions. Do not feel bound to this at all, but this may at least help you a little bit. So one of those questions is, so, you know, and I think we heard a little bit about that, was NetSquared's branding and identity. Anyone have any curiosities around that? because I certainly have a couple questions around that. And one of that has been the interesting thing about NetSquared, which has been historically, we have brought in groups that have not been called NetSquared. I think of a good example of that, of like NC Tech for Good, which has that name primarily because they pre-existed NetSquared in this world. So we basically adopted that group into our larger network. And so I think that'll be one of the discussions we have going forward is what do we do with the historical variety of branding that is part of NetSquared? I'm hearing from Carolyn some idea around a modern logo. Susan, what do you think about something like that?
Well, I think that we're going to be kind of folding in the TechSoup brand a little bit. So, I mean, not a little bit. We're going to be folding in the TechSoup brand. So I think that we should talk about logo after we discuss and then we figure out what the brand will be. But it's not going to be what it is now, just to let you guys know. It's not going to have the old, because it's actually, it's very outdated. We came up with the NetSquared concept when Web 2.0 first emerged, and Marnie, I was in the room, and it was about Web 2.0, and that was the concept of NetSquared. So it's now, we're way beyond that. We're 14 years after Web 2.0. So we're definitely going to rebrand. And it will have to do, it will include having you guys be able to talk to what is the difference, what is the connection between your regional meetup and TechSoup? Because we don't want to just be, a sponsor. We want to be we are the people we're the connected community. This is an interconnected network of communities. So we don't want, that's what we want.
Yeah, and so I think comments here coming from people like Shaheen is having some kind of branding guidelines booklet would be very helpful. And I think, to bring all these disparate pieces into one central document and more clearly communicate it is definitely on our roadmap of things that need to be done. So I have another question, which is who is our ideal attendee within the NetSquared community? It's changed a lot, as Susan's seen. We've come from a place where we had a community blog around Web 2.0. Then we moved into doing lots of hackathons and places where we were really attracting people who were in the developer role. And some of that community sort of then migrated into Caravan Studios. More recently, it's been around small nonprofits, but it's always had a really strong technology presence. So that to me is one of the questions, which is, who do you think should be at our events? When we think of our dream attendee, who is that person? Go ahead, Pauline.
Well, for me, it's always been the struggle to get charities to come to events, because no matter how much you try to dumb down the language of inviting people to events, they still seem a bit reluctant. We had a big our biggest sign up was for an event about CRMs, and then we had to cancel because three speakers all dropped out. But I think the ideal attendee is somebody who's working in a charity at a whatever level, staff, volunteer, trustee, who has an idea about something that might work, and then getting us to workshop or brainstorm about what might be effective. So yeah, more people who kind of are involved with small charities. Techies, I've got plenty of, and on the tech side, maybe somebody who has both an idea of what it's like to work in a small charity and has some technical skills.
Thank you. Regina, I saw your hand go up as well.
Yeah, when you're talking about the ideal attendee, I think it might shift from location to location. I know Karen down in LA is also on the call. We're both in big metro areas with a lot going on, right? I'm in the Bay Area. So my ideal attendee, I look at it a little differently, where I'm trying to figure out the demographics of my group. There are almost 5,000 people in it at this point. So it's just, so what I try to do is I try to find, guests and events that will appeal to the demographics with their in that group, the example, KQED, that was KQED is the big public media company. They're nonprofit. They are here in San Francisco, and that was my March event. And we were going to talk about how they were using their news platform and how they were incorporating, technology into that, and then, reaching out. But then in January, it was with an organization called Samasource, which is a nonprofit that does a lot of data work and getting people to work, and a lot of work in West Africa. So all of that to say is that I don't know if I want to get stuck with the ideal attendee, because I've got such a big group, right? So I want to be able to produce events that appeal to the nonprofits, the social good orgs, but also, those techies, because they're definitely here in the Bay Area. And I think the last time there was a survey, it was roughly a 50-50 mix.
It's typically very 50-50 across the community,
So I just, wanted to put that out there, that depending on where you are, you're going to have these huge groups that have, different sorts of people, but that are all pulled together because they're really interested in how to use or build technology for social change, or if they're with an org, they want to learn more too, right? Because I've done those types of events too. So
over to Shaheen next.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Shane Farja from Iraq, representative of the EXS. We're probably the newcomers of the NetSquared family. I don't know, but Eli could say that we're probably the newest ones, I think. So this is one of the questions that came up in our recent virtual meeting at the board of the EXS, which was, so who would attend this this meetup? What are we planning here? I think that according to the name of NetSquared, obviously, and the tech and nonprofit thing, I'm going to talk about Iraq now. Iraq doesn't really have that nonprofit capability. However, we are trying to find enough resources and especially human resources to bring in people. It's really hard, and as I've been hearing you guys talking about, even well-established groups are not being able to bring in people. So I hope that we can, as the newcomers, to establish this new footstep with you, with everyone. And as I said, the branding guidelines should be a good idea. We have other organizations that we work with that have these types of things. So that is why I suggested this. And I had this thought right now. So as a virtual meeting, why don't we have something of an international meeting that has more like people? I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that's what I had to say. And thank you all. I know it's a bit new, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to our community. Also, I love how people are putting up their hand. I can't figure out how you do it.
I can't either. I was DMing Eli saying, how do I raise my hand in Zoom? I've never done that. I've only done these little thumbs ups, but I didn't know. How do I do that? Regina?
Yeah, how you do that is you go into you click the participants, where at the bottom it says participants.
Yeah.
And under that list, you'll see an option to raise your hand.
From the participant view. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Also, yes, no, all that stuff. But anyways.
Fun. Love that. No, it's very helpful. Thank you. I only spend, 7 hours a day in Zoom, and I don't know how to use it. I want to move to a couple more questions before we, in our final 10 minutes. One of those is, let's talk the the fact that, you know, Susan actually comes into this program with probably not infinite money, but she does hold the purse strings. If we had a little bit of money to spend, what would be really valuable to us as a community? Like, what do you need?
Oh, Stephanie looks like she's speaking, but on mute.
I'm trying to raise my hand and failing. I'm so sorry.
You're in, we hear you.
It was just a quick one for Shaheen. I'm based in Wales, UK. I used to run the London group, but when I moved to Wales, the culture here is completely different from that of England. And everything is very, very face to face. All this virtual stuff and technology and that, the charities weren't interested. Now I see with this COVID-19 thing, there's this massive influx of interest. So being a bit of a geek, I want to grab the opportunity and get a NetSquared Wales group set up, because I've seen the need, something awful in the years I've lived here. So if Shaheen wants some sympathy, a shoulder to cry on, etc., for working with people who aren't used to working with technology, etc., we can kind of team up if he likes.
Yeah, sure. We're very open to international cooperation. It's actually our main interest, as Zeke says, the Iraqi Group of Cultural, Educational, and Scientific Exchange. We hope to work with international organizations. We even have plans to establish a foundation which would be called the Global Foundation, with many organizations. Actually, that's one of our plans, as Zeke says. I'm the representative, and I'm the one who pushed for this idea of NetSquared, and I'm really happy to join here. So
Excellent. Thank you.
Definitely.
So I see another hand. Jaideep, I see your hand up there and you're muted at the moment. I'm going to unmute you. Go for it.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. And I am Jaideep, living in New Delhi in India. I hope you all can hear me.
Can you turn your volume up, please? I mean, or speak closer to your mic.
Yeah, is it better?
It's better.
Yeah, okay. So I had just few quick questions. Like I recently joined and about to start my activities, and then all of a sudden this serious issue came up globally, and everything in my case has held up, because I was about to talk to some people about the venue, and then I was talking to some NGOs and some as mentors. So all those things have happened partially, and then everything has come to a standstill. Still, I was wondering, like Shaheen gave a very good point, like can we have some global participation also, maybe once in 3 months kind of thing. Secondly, do we have a forum where we share our plus and minuses of any event which is held at any location? Third, do we have a monthly newsletter kind of thing to share our knowledge across, with everybody? And fourth, do we have a calendar of the upcoming events, country-wise or location-wise, where I, as a guest, to gain some knowledge as a newcomer, can join as a silent participant kind of thing? So these are my few questions.
All right, I may not have got the full track of that. Let me work backwards on that. So first of all, absolutely, at netsquared.org, which I put into the wrong chat window, you can see a list of all the upcoming events, and you can search by your location. And so that's a great way for you to say, like, show me all the upcoming events in India or in Sri Lanka. So that's one source. There is for organizers, a monthly newsletter where I share things like these webinars and other resources. And that's the other opportunity we have, is we have a video call like this at least once a month, where we as organizers can come together. And of course, there's also the Facebook and Slack forums. But as you heard, the common word on that was always like organizer, organizer, organizer. There is no place at this moment where the wider attendees of NetSquared groups from across all the countries are coming together into one place. I think that is one of the discussions we should have with Susan as we go forward, which is to say, is that appropriate to have a NetSquared specific place? Should we send everyone into the TechSoup forums? I think it's one of the bigger questions we should resolve, because right now there is no cross-attendee space for attendees of NetSquared.
I'm going to just address a question in the chat that was to me, David Plant. So Caravan was the team I was with for 7 years, but we don't specifically, or Caravan, it's not we, I'm now TechSoup. Caravan doesn't specifically build individual apps for organizations. That's not what Caravan does. Caravan does kind of builds apps for mission verticals. So like domestic violence organizations, human trafficking, or organizations that help survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. They have an app that helps locate free meals for youth. So what they don't specifically help small groups or organizations to create mobile apps. There are other people that we would direct you to do that. So that's kind of not what they do. But in terms of moving your operation to remote, that's what TechSoup's, we're producing tons of content about that right now. And there's a whole page of resources on COVID-19 that Eli can share. And to my point earlier about giving you guys a paragraph, my hope is that we, actually I shouldn't rephrase that. My plan is that we will, going forward with these newsletters, give you guys a paragraph for your newsletters to share with your members that includes new resources that we think that will be helpful to your communities. So things like remote work. In terms of making your site mobile enabled, that's a different, it's a whole huge process. It's not something that you can kind of just do quickly.
Fabulous. So we're moving into our final 5 minutes. One question I think that comes up all the time is, what do you think about this Meetup platform? We've been on it for 13 years since day one. It has traditionally been a bit of a data black hole from my standpoint, but from the organizer standpoint, I'd love to hear from you about, what do you think about this platform? Is it meeting your needs? Are there some gaps? I think I saw one thing there around email lists and like having access to some of that attendee data in a deeper way. Who wants to dive into this first? Because I know people have strong opinions on Meetup. Anyone throw your hands up? Anyone else got a question on that? Otherwise, I'll pontificate for days.
It looks like 2 participants raised their hand, Eli.
Perfect, perfect. If you want to just unmute yourself, Desiree?
About the Meetup group.
Sorry, go ahead, on Meetup.
Okay, in my country, for my geographic location, the Meetup group doesn't really work because the non-profits takes care of the sick, they visit orphanages, so they don't have access to those platforms to get to know about your events. So I think during our last meeting last year, I told you I was going to visit the NGOs in person because they are not digitally inclined. But here the COVID-19 has changed things, so you're not able to get in touch with them anymore. So I think I didn't have a very good response during my last meetup on Saturday this March. Yeah.
No, I think that's really great feedback. One, in some communities, there are not a lot of people who are online centric, or maybe they're only using WhatsApp groups, and therefore Meetup is just not the right platform, the right barrier. In other places like a San Francisco or a Vancouver, you know, I've got 100 people joining my Meetup every month without me doing anything. It's just this natural, magical acquisition engine. So I think you're totally right. Meetup's value is very different in other communities.
I want to just
Go
mention,
ahead, Susan.
with regard to Bevy, Bevy is one of the platforms that we're considering. It's considerably more expensive than Meetup. It's not free, and you know we would be the ones having to support it for you. So that's kind of it. It is a great platform. I know them very well. They write me probably every day trying to get us to move there. But I love that platform, but it's considerably more expensive, like 6 times more expensive than Meetup for this group. So just to let you guys know, it's not a super simple switch. And then they also don't have the serendipitous stumble upon factor that Meetup does, to Eli's point. I love that when I was running my Meetup, people would be recommended to my Meetup frequently, and that's a really nice feature.
Yeah, I think there are some deep questions to happen, and basically say like, we are not going to surprise you with any platform changes. Anything that happens is going to happen slow and methodically, should we ever come to that. You know, I would say from my perspective, my frustration with Meetup is I don't know very much about my attendees. I don't know who works at a nonprofit, what their title is. I also feel frustrated that their email address is sort of trapped within that platform, and I have not just traditionally been able to access that. If we were to move to a platform that gave us more data, I think it would also open up a whole series of questions for us as a community around ownership of that data, especially given all the global data rules we'd all have to work within. So that would certainly bring up a deep level of complexity, but I'm confident that together we'd be able to resolve that. So that's a great question. And you know, I've got 1,000 other dreams that I would like to do for us as a community. Pauline, go for it.
Okay, thanks. One thing I've been talking to Jonathan Chevalier here in the UK about, he runs Charity Digital Trust, Tech Trust as was, which is the partner for TechSoup in the UK, about getting all the tech for good networks in the UK together with them, because they have a membership, right? And when I did a quick, I got some information from Matt Marut when he was there about the number of members we have in the West Midlands, they have in the West Midlands, and tried to do some cross referral, because when you go back to the question about your ideal attendee, somebody who's in a charity who's already a member of your local TechSoup affiliate, you know, you'd think they would be the ideal attendee because they already have some clue about what technology can do, and they've benefited from the local affiliate. So it seems like a match made in heaven. And so that's what I'll be trying to do for the next year or so. And I wondered if anybody else had tried that.
So I know we're now just come to the end of it. I can give you a quick answer on that around the global partners. The way TechSoup works is each global partner is a separate legal organization, so highly independent, which means I can never tell them what to do, but I can use persuasion and charm. And so that's worked well in some countries where I'm thinking of like Canada or Australia, where the local TechSoup partner will actually send out newsletters in support of the local groups. It's also something we're able to do in the US about twice a year for most groups. But I agree that there are other countries where we have not been able to offer that kind of access to the TechSoup membership in that country. Just logistically, it has been sometimes a little bit challenging, or they haven't had the local capacity. I'm going to be working with Susan and Lizzie to open up more opportunities around that for you, because I agree, it's as part of the integration of NetSquared into TechSoup. I think part of it is we also need to build awareness of our existing TechSoup members about the value the local meetups can provide for them. So this is, I think, the end of it. I'm really grateful for all of you for joining us. I will, of course, download the video and make that available for you for people who maybe had technical problems or couldn't make it. I'll also, of course, provide the slides as well. And if you ever have any questions, know that you can reach me on any platform that touches the internet, and I'll be there for you. You can also, of course, schedule me for a call, and you'll see Susan has also shared her email address into the chat window. So if you need to talk with her directly, maybe you've got an issue with me and you want to bypass me, which is very fair, you can always reach out to her as well. Again, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your patience during this super complex time where we're all going to be really flexible as we take our online events into a whole new form, and you'll have more coming from us as well on that.